So our lesson today is number 5, solve and write division equations. Go ahead, scan your lesson, and list 2 real-world scenarios in which you would use division equations. Let's see how you did. So, 2 of them that you could have gotten from the lesson were, division equations can be used to find the total length of something when you know the length of a piece and the number of pieces. And another one that you could have used was division equations can be used to find the actual size of something when you know the size of the model and the scale. So those are 2 examples that we'll probably look at in this lesson. So take a look at your real world link. It says allowances. Leslie spends $5 a month on snacks at school, which is 1/4 of her monthly allowance. Complete the questions below and find Leslie's monthly allowance. Go ahead and take a few minutes and figure these out. All 4 of them, pause the video. Okay, let's see how you did. Well, in the first one, we were supposed to draw a bar diagram to represent $5 as 1/4 of Leslie's monthly allowance. So the whole bar would represent her monthly allowance, and if we're representing 1/4, we would take that bar and divide it into 4 equal pieces. So each of these sections is 1/4 of her allowance. Now we're told that $5 is 1/4 of her allowance, so one of these sections is going to be $5. What is Leslie's monthly allowance? Well, if there are 4 sections and they're all worth $5, that makes $20 her allowance per month. What operation did you use to find Leslie's allowance? We multiplied. We multiplied $5 times 4 sections. So multiplication is what we used here. How can you check your answer to determine if it is accurate? Well, I can use the inverse operations and divide $20 by 4 to check to see if the answer is accurate. So notice here that when we're using multiplication, we can check it by using division. But today's lesson is about division equations. I wonder how we'll be able to check division equations. All right, solve division equations. In the situation on the previous page, the equation A divided by 4 equals 5, where A represents the monthly allowance, means the monthly allowance divided by 4 equals 5. So this fraction bar here, we're using to represent division. We want to make sure we understand that because all of our examples in this lesson are going to use a fraction bar to mean division. Since multiplication and division are inverse operations, use multiplication to solve division equations. Now let's recap here. We just said that we're going to use multiplication to undo division. In our previous lessons, we used division to undo multiplication. So that means division and multiplication are inverse operations. We used addition to undo subtraction, and we used subtraction to undo addition. So addition and subtraction are inverse operations, and multiplication and division are inverse operations. Take a look at example number 1, method 1. One way of looking at A divided by 3 equals 7 is by using a bar diagram like we did in our real world link, where A represents the whole length of the bar, and we're dividing it by 3, or putting it into 3 equal groups, where each equal group is worth 7. So if we have 3 equal groups, and each group is worth 7, A is going to be 7 times 3, or 21. A is going to be equal to 21. So that's one way of figuring these out. In method number 2, we go away from the bar diagram and look at using our inverse operations to help us solve. Same equation, A divided by 3 equals 7. Well, what's our variable here? A is our variable, and it's on top, so we're going to be dividing into A. What number is paired with the variable? 3. So A is being divided by 3. That's what we mean by paired. What operation is involved? Well, what we want to remember here is that fraction bars are division symbols. So we're dividing A divided by 3. And how do we undo division? Well, we're going to multiply. And we're going to multiply each side by 3. So to solve division equations, we multiply by our divisor. We multiply by our divisor. We're multiplying each side by 3. These 3's are going to cancel each other out, and we'll look a little closer into that in the next example. And then we see that A by itself is equal to 21 because 7 times 3 is 21. And of course, if we wanted to check, we could take 21, replace it in the equation where A is, and see that 3 goes into 21 7 times, and that gives us a true statement. So using either method, the bar diagram or using the symbols, allows us to get the solution of 21. Try these on your own using either a bar diagram or the symbols. When I go over these with you, I'm going to use the symbols and show you how it works. Okay, let's see how you did. Well, I was supposed to say pause the video, so pause the video and try them. And then we'll see how you did. All right, so look at the first one. In the first one, we're dividing x by 8, and it should equal 9. Now, if we're going to use inverse operations here, that means we're going to multiply on both sides. And we said in our examples that we're multiplying both sides by our divisor. So that means we're going to multiply both sides by 8. So 9 times 8 on this side. And look what I did here. I put 8 over 1 so I can multiply it on this side. Now, if I cancel or simplify before I multiply, 8 goes into 8 one time, and 8 goes into 8 one time, which would just leave me with x left over, or 1 times x, which is just x. Remember the identity property. And 9 times 8 is 72. So multiplying by 8 on both sides gets my variable by itself and gives me the solution to my variable. For B, we're dividing y by 4, and it should equal 8. So that means I'm multiplying by 4 on both sides of my equal sign. Multiplying 8 times 4, and y divided by 4 times 4. Those 4's end up canceling out. I get my y by itself, and 8 times 4 is 32. So same process here. I'm multiplying by my divisor. Look at C. We're dividing m by 5, and it should equal 9. That means I'm multiplying both sides by 5. I multiply one side by 5, those 5's cancels out, and I have my variable by itself, and 9 times 5 is 45. Last one. B divided by 2 equals 30. Now, if we look at how it's given to us, we've got 30 on the left and B divided by 2 on the right. All I did was switch the sides of the equal sign so that I could do them the same way I had done all of the others. Remember, switching them is not going to change anything, so it's okay. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. Those 2's cancel out and give me B by itself, and 30 times 2 is 60. So the process, again, multiplying both sides by the divisor. Both sides by the divisor gets the variable by itself and the solution to the variable. When we multiply on both sides of the equal sign, we are using the multiplication property of equality. That means what you do to one side, you gotta do to the other, and in this particular case, multiplying. If you multiply on one side, you gotta multiply on the other. Look at example number 2. Example number 2 is a word problem, but we're still going to be able to use the bar diagram as well as symbols to help us solve. So in the problem it says, the weight of an object on the moon is 1/6 that of its weight on Earth. If an object weighs 35 pounds on the moon, write and solve a division equation to find its weight on Earth. Okay, so what do we need to find? We need to find the object's weight on Earth. So we'll use W to represent the weight. Let W represent the weight of the object on Earth. What is the weight of the object on the moon? Well, the weight of the object on the moon is 35 pounds. So 35 pounds is 1/6 of W, the weight on Earth. What number will you multiply the weight of the moon by to get the weight of Earth? Well, let's look at our bar diagram here. If 35 pounds is 1/6, that means we're going to take W and divide it into 6 equal groups. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And each of those equal groups is going to be worth 35 pounds. Does that make sense? Hopefully so. So our division equation is going to be W divided by 6 equal groups. And each of those groups should be equal to 35. So W divided by 6 equals 35 is our equation. Now, to answer the question, what number will you multiply the weight of the moon by to get the weight of Earth? If we're dividing by 6, that means we're multiplying by 6. we are multiplying by 6 on both sides of our equal sign. Those 6's cancel out, giving us our W by itself, and 35 times 6 is 210. So the weight of a 35-pound object on the moon on Earth is actually 210 pounds. All right, so let's stop and reflect here for a second. How is solving a multiplication equation similar to solving a division equation? And how is it different? Well, they're similar in that we do the same thing on both sides. We use the property of equality, whether it's multiplication or division. Oh, my bad. We use either multiplication or division. But the difference, of course, is the operation. So here, to solve, we multiply on both sides. If it was a multiplication equation, we would divide on both sides. All right, pause the video, try this one on your own, and we'll see how you do. All right, so the problem says, Nathan picked a total of 60 apples in 1/3 of an hour. Write and solve a division equation to find how many apples Nathan could pick in 1 hour. All right, so this is kind of like a unit rate problem too, but we're going to use division to help us solve. So H for us is going to represent the whole hour, and we're dividing that whole hour into 3 equal parts. 1, 2, 3 equal parts, because 60 apples needs to be 1/3 of the hour. Okay, so 60, number of apples in 1/3. So our division problem is going to be H divided into 3 equal groups, where each equal group is 60. H divided by 3 equals 60. Now to solve, we're going to take the number we're dividing by, which is 3, and multiply it on both sides. Remember, when we multiply over here, those 3's cancel out, giving us our variable by itself, and then we get the number of apples that he picked in a whole hour. 60 times 3 gives us 180 apples. Same process. Look at example number 3. It says Carla is buying ribbon for costumes. She wants to divide the ribbon into 8.5-inch pieces for 16 costumes. Write and solve a division equation to find the length of ribbon Carla should buy. All right, so what do we need to find? We need to find the length of ribbon Carla should buy. So what whole piece of ribbon does she need to buy? Well, how long is each piece of ribbon? Each piece of ribbon needs to be 8.5 inches long. Okay, and how many pieces does she need to have? She needs to have 16 pieces. So if we put all of those things together, understanding that the length of ribbon is going to be our unknown or our variable, R for ribbon, we're going to divide that by 8.5-inch pieces. That total amount divided by 8.5-inch pieces should give us how many pieces of ribbon she needs to have, 16. So our equation is R divided by 8.5 equals 16. Now, we're dividing here, so that means we're going to need to multiply to solve our equation. And we're going to multiply by the number we are dividing by. So that means we're multiplying by 8.5 on each side of our equal sign. These 8.5s are going to cancel out, giving us our variable by itself. And, oops, my bad. When we multiply 16 by 8.5, that gives us 136. So that means Carla needs to buy 136 inches of ribbon. Pause the video, try this one on your own, and we'll see how you do. Okay, so the problem says Allison is buying a pie. It's baking a pie. She wants 4.5 strawberries in each serving for 8 people. Write and solve a division equation to find how many strawberries Allison will need. Well, let's recap what we know. We know that 4.5 is equal to the number of strawberries that need to go in each serving. We know that 8 is the number of people that's being served, and we're going to let S represent the number of strawberries Allison needs to buy. Okay, so our equation is going to have all of these parts in there. S being the total number of strawberries she needs to buy, 4.5 being how much needs to be in each serving, and we should be able to serve 8 people with however many strawberries she buys in all. So S divided by 4.5 should give us 8 total servings. So we're going to divide both sides by 4.5 to get how many strawberries she needs to buy. All right, so when we multiply by 4.5 on both sides, these 4.5s cancel out, giving us our variable by itself. And 8 times 4.5 is 36 strawberries. So she needs 36 strawberries to make 8 servings of pie. Now you're going to do some on your own. Your next move is to complete the guided practice problems. That's numbers 1 through 6, that should say, not 1 through 3, 1 through 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, including number 6. Then you'll check your answers by scanning the QR code at the solution station and submit your guided practice. The last thing you're going to do for me is an exit ticket in Edmodo. So let's make sure we're doing that. We're doing the guided practice, we're scanning, checking our answers, we're turning our guided practice in, and then doing the exit ticket.